Now that we know how to write compounds and name compounds, we know what they're made of and how they interact with each other, we can finally now talk about chemical reactions. And a chemical reaction is just how different atoms or molecules interact with each other and rearrange. And we represent a chemical reaction with a chemical equation. Chemical equations can be very simple. So I'm just going to write one right now that doesn't have any real elements in it. So let's say we have A plus B becomes C. This is an example of a chemical equation. On the left side, we have the reactants. On the right side, we have the products. And in the middle here, this is called the yields arrow, or becomes, or reacts. So the reactants are the chemicals that we start with. And they are on the left side of the chemical equation. The products are the new chemicals that are formed during the reaction. And these are on the right side of the equation. Now let's look at an actual chemical reaction. So we will react sodium with chlorine, and that's going to give us sodium chloride. The other thing that I'll add in here is next to each element, I'm going to put a little bit of parentheses with some letters next to it. And I'll explain what these mean in a minute. So first, let's identify the reactants and the products. So the reactants are what are on the left side of the arrow. So here's our arrow. On the left, we have sodium and chlorine. So these two elements are going to be the reactants. Meaning on this side, this is the product. On the bottom, these letters that I added on the bottom in parentheses, these are actually states, meaning solid, liquid, gas, etc. So I have to put states in because the states tell me what type of compound I'm using. It's important to note that sodium is a solid, so when I go to do this reaction, I have the proper container. It's important that chlorine is a gas. Also affects the container, and also some reactions won't occur unless the chemicals are in certain states. And there are actually 4 states that we can have. So the first one that I have in the equation is S, and these are always lowercase letters, and S stands for a solid. We also have L, and L is liquid. We have G, and that's going to stand for gas. And the last state that we could have is AQ, and this stands for aqueous. Now, aqueous, all aqueous means is dissolved in water. So if you see something in an equation that has an AQ next to it, it just means that that substance has been dissolved in water. One other thing that I'd like to point out with chemical reactions is it doesn't just have to be two reactants coming to one product. It can be all sorts of combinations. We could have, let's say, water. And under some circumstances, we can actually split water into hydrogen plus oxygen. We could have two things become two things. For example, we could have lead, maybe lead nitrate plus potassium iodide. And this can react to give us lead iodide and potassium nitrate. And for states on this, this is actually aqueous. This is actually aqueous, so these are all dissolved in water. This is a solid, and this one is also aqueous. So we can have all sorts of combinations when we do our chemical reactions, and we have to say whether our reactants and products are solid, liquid, gas, or aqueous.